This is to show differences between original 75 and 76 Oldsmobile 98 quarter fillers. As you can see here, this is an NOS original factory GM Oldsmobile part. You can see it is a perfect right angle at the top where it meets the taillight. And the panel measures, kind of hard to focus here, but I assure you it's 5 3/4 inches. This is the NOS original part, straight all the way down, top to bottom. This is the plastic products part, reproduction, and although again it's a little hard for this camera to focus, it is 5 1/4. I don't know if I can get a better focus or not. 5 1/4. And you'll also notice the part does not come to a crisp right angle. It tapers back, and the taillight then sticks out. You can also see that the panel itself, at the base, is roughly 5 3/4 inches. And the NOS factory part from edge to edge is 6 inches. Again, making it straight all the way up the top. And a nice crisp angle at the top. Reproduction comes up, tapers off. Does not give the same crisp edge, and it leaves the taillight exposed, hanging out. And I actually have put shims on this taillight bracket, pulling it in significantly, and it's still not really sitting in there correctly. Another issue is down at the bottom, where it comes down around the bumper. This bracket's a little off. This is incorrect. This is not supposed to be curved down towards the bottom. This is correct here. This should not be a curve at all. Factory part. Hope the light works on this. Hope the lighting is good enough, but if you follow it down, you'll see crisp 90-degree angle. Factory, and then the curve around the bumper. This is correct, this is correct, this is correct. Factory. Plastic products, plastic parts, sorry, curved. Not the worst mistake in the world, but the prototype set, which I'll show in a minute, is not like this. It's not like it here, and it's not like it here. So I don't know where the change happened. There's also, it's a little hard to notice, but right here on the passenger side only, this piece, there's a little bit of a divot right here. It doesn't follow a perfectly straight line. Also not on the prototype. Another thing that was a little hard to show in the photographs is where it comes down along the trunk edge to here. This is just hitting the bumper right here. This is from this dimension, from here all the way up the panel to the quarter panel, should be roughly 17 1/4 inches if you measure with a piece of tape or string. This piece comes out at just about 17 inches. And although that may seem insignificant, that 1/4 inch helps keep this tucked nice and neatly under the bumper, as you'll see on the factory piece here. It's a little hard to tell because it's a black car. It almost looks like the shadows are throwing you off a little bit. But this piece is tucked underneath the bumper, which is exactly how it's supposed to look. This one, the reproduction, ends right there, and with the tape on it's a little hard to see. Maybe this will help. If you look, that's the end of the piece right there. it needs to go a quarter of an inch further. Will make it fit right underneath the bumper like it's supposed to. And that would be a big help. Otherwise, the bumper needs to be adjusted to pull in, and then it's going to mess up the alignments on everything else. Otherwise, the alignment to the trunk is very nice. It's consistent with the gap from the quarter to the trunk, so that's very much right on. The seam down the side of the car is overall very good. Not quite 100%, but nothing I wouldn't make the biggest stink about anything here. I would say overall this is very good for a reproduction part. There's a little bit of room for improvement, which might be a little bit of sanding and a little bit of work there. But I think overall that's very good. Down here along the edge of the bumper, this is fine, this is fine. This is that problem I mentioned a minute ago. This should not be a curve, it should be a 90 degree. Straight down, straight across. Little bit of an issue here where it meets the top edge of the quarter panel. There's a little bit too much of a gap here. And it seems when the part's off the car, which this one is unfortunately already mounted, it seems a little bit as if this top edge sticks out a little bit too far that way along this piece, along this surface, and that causes it to not sit 100% flush. So I'm thinking it might be possible to simply file that down a little bit, and maybe then it would sit up nice and tight. I haven't tried it yet. These parts from here all the way down should essentially be perfectly flat. So this part should be able to lay on a perfectly flat surface without any imperfections or gaps between the part and the bench. So that should give a little bit of a reference when going over the part in the correction process of remaking the molds. I'm now going to take you into my shop and show you, again, factory. Don't mind the missing trim. Factory part, nice crisp edge at the top. Very crisp, defined edges. Very rounded, non-factory edges. No edges, in fact. It's very rounded and curved off and way too far back. Again, from the email I sent, this dimension's a 1/2 inch short, this dimension's a 1/4 inch short at the bottom, and it tapers back. It should not taper back at all. It should be very consistent all the way up. Okay, I will now show the prototype set, which is here. This was the original set that Todd sent. And as you can see, I don't have my tape measure in my hand now. The top is the correct 5 3/4 inches, this top dimension. This is also the correct forward edge, where it's straight. The whole way down, it's straight. It doesn't have that little divot, the 10-inch mark right about here. It's correct all and straight all the way up and down. It does not taper back. It doesn't have that rounded face. It has the correct factory defined edges all the way down. There were other errors with this one, but they were fixed with the finals. Also, another big item that I discovered is how down here, and this is the part where it comes around the bumper, this is correct. Again, prototype set. Comes down straight, makes a nice 90-degree angle. The newer product is rounded significantly. Actually, the same round curve as this, but in reverse. It is not correct. It should be just like this, just like the black factory NOS part. Another item that I thought was very interesting, since this was the prototype, was that this dimension, from this point on the inside edge up to the top back edge, sorry, is the same as the factory part, 17 1/4 inches. So this edge down here does tuck underneath the bumper correctly. Again, the new parts do not. That 1/4 inch is significant. It does need to be there. Also, and I'll show you on this one, and I'll show you another used part, there are no holes on this inside edge underneath the trunk lid to mount the part to the mounting bracket that goes inside, this being the bracket right here. These 3 holes, a little hard to focus, 1, 2, 3, have 3 tiny sheet metal screws that would go through this part of the filler. Hold on. And here they are. 1, 2, 3. And those would line up perfectly with the bracket. Not the end of the world if I need to drill those myself, but I'm sure people would be happier if they didn't have to do any drilling on a brand new part. The other item, which was the same on the prototypes as the final ones, and I mentioned but it was not addressed, is the fact that the mounting holes inside, which I'll show from the back, sorry, correct, these are all good. These are all the holes that these big studs are going to mount through. And those are nice big studs. They need that hole. That's correct. The problem is these 1, 2, 3 holes at the bottom are way too big. They're the same size as the ones up top, which is not right. These holes should look like this. Nice and small, little oval holes that a small Phillips head screw will mount through. Not a big screw with a big washer making it sloppy and just inaccurate. So if at all possible, if those holes could be replicated like the original set that you guys have, as well as these holes on the inside edge of the trunk. This dimension down the inside edge needs to be extended the way the factory part is. This edge needs to be straight, just like this. Needs to be 5 3/4 inches at the top, 6 inches from this point to this point, and then a super gradual fade from 6 inches at the bottom to 5 3/4 at the top, which is almost completely unnoticeable. But the 5 1/4 at the bottom, the part at the bottom, I apologize, I'm messing myself up here. The dimensions at the bottom to the 5 1/4 at the top of the new part is a significant part change, and makes a big obvious difference when they're on the car especially. And again, back to the car, or cars. You can see how this part is mounted on this car. Factory parts, no fudging it. This is all 100% factory parts. No manipulating on the alignments. This is exactly how this car is supposed to look. You can see all the way around. The gap to the trunk. You can also see the gap, the lack of a gap, at the top against the quarter panel. Very, very tight fit. Very tight all the way around, all the way down. Keeping in mind this is a flexible part, you have a little easier time working with it to make it fit perfectly, and it may give differently when you mount. But back to the reproduction, you do get a bit of a gap here. Something that probably could be worked with by the end user, but again, something that might be able to be addressed in the production process since you are making changes. So, biggest thing is this curve at the bottom, wrong, needs to be a right angle, as you can see by the gap. And then you can also see this little divot right here, the rounded top, and the shortness of this top as well. I hope this gives a good explanation of all the things that need to be addressed. Overall, the quality of the part is excellent. I'm hoping with some help and some time and careful planning that these corrections can be made, and a very, very, very high quality finished product can come out of this, because these cars are beautiful cars. They're gaining a lot of popularity. I've had this car 15 years, this car for 30 years. They're not going anywhere, and I know everybody that owns these cars needs these parts. So you guys have the market on this. If you make this part exactly the way it needs to be, or as close as possible, You guys will be doing very well. I will sing your praises to everybody I know and everybody they know with 75 and 698s. And as I'm sure you know, they fit 2 doors and 4 doors just the same. So again, good luck. I hope all the corrections come out okay. Please keep me informed. Thank you very much.